Okay, so it's great to see everyone here today. Welcome. My name is Michael Williams, and today we're going to be talking about how I overcame stuttering using this little known secret. And actually, it's a couple of secrets. And I'm going to be sharing those secrets with you as I kind of share not just my story, right, about how I overcame stuttering, but the steps that I used, okay, the process that I used. And so there's going to be a lot of learning in this for you, okay? So once again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today. I promise you this is going to be an excellent use of your time, an excellent investment of your time, okay? So we still have the poll open. Let me just check and see how we're doing with that. Okay, so we still have a few people that have not voted so far. If you can go ahead, I'm just going to leave that poll open for a little while. So go ahead and vote. Is this your first time attending a Pro 90D webinar? Surprisingly, there are quite a few people that this is your first time. And so I want you to know that you're going to walk away with some action items, some things that you can actually do. I'm not going to waste your time trying to sell you stuff. I am going to invite you to something towards the end, but I'm not going to use this time to sell you something. So that being said, what I'd like for you to do is to just get in a place where you can be focused and engaged in what we're doing today. I also want you to think about why you're attending this webinar. Why are you here? What did you come here for? What did you come here to learn? And think about one or two things that you'd like to take away. What would you like to walk away with, right? So you're here today investing your time and you want to leave with something. You want to leave with a feeling. You want to leave with some hope. You want to leave with some strategies, some techniques. What do you want to leave with? So think about that. Okay, so let's talk about how I actually overcame stuttering. What are the secrets that I use to overcome stuttering? The first thing that I want you to know is that I've stuttered ever since I can remember. That is, wow, I can think back to about the time that I was in like first or second grade. And I remember being in the classroom and having to read or having to answer questions and not being able to do it. And just, of course, at that time, I didn't know it was stuttering. I just knew that I couldn't get out what I wanted to say. It was very, very frustrating, to say the least, that you're sitting there and the teachers ask you to read something or you want to respond and you can't. It doesn't come out. So what many children do and what many adults do is you just try to force it out. You push it out because it's not coming out. And that's why you see people when they're forcing their words out, just pressure. Your jaws can get tight, your breath can get short, and you just see them making faces and they're making sounds because they're just forcing it out. It's a habit. It's a habit that they got into. So, I used to do that. I used to force. There were times I can remember after I got older that I would even just clamp down so hard that I bit my tongue and it would start to bleed. And so now, not only can I not get my words out, now I'm in pain and my tongue is bleeding. So extremely frustrating growing up. So then they sent me to speech therapy, right? Which didn't help at all. And I'm not saying that speech therapists don't help. I think that they can be extremely effective for young children and for some adults, but not all adults. So they sent me to speech therapy and it didn't help. It just made me more frustrated because they had me saying sounds and reading things that I couldn't read, and it just made me more frustrated. So I went on, through grade school, first, second, third, all the way up through high school, struggling with my speech, having the answers to questions and not being able to answer them and feeling frustrated. But eventually, I found some workarounds, right? I found ways to say pretty much what I wanted to say. got very good at switching and changing and anticipating. That's a lot of pressure, but I got pretty good at it. So finally, I'm not sure when it was pretty early in my school career, where they realized, hey, this guy's actually pretty smart. He belongs in what we call the rapid class. That's the smart class for the smart people. And I got teased a lot about that. But they realized that I had potential, that I was smart, that I just had a problem with my speech. And I would go through cycles, and some of you have experienced this, where you go through these cycles of fluency, and then all of a sudden there are times where you just can't get anything out. And sometimes it's based on what's going on in your life. Something's going on in your family or whatever. Struggled a lot with my mother because she was very, very strong. Wonderful mother, but very, very strong, sometimes overbearing. So that added more pressure. And I'll share something even a little more personal that may have had an impact on my speech as well. So my birth mother, when she had me, she actually left me in the hospital. And I'm glad that she did that, because she felt as though she wasn't going to be able to take care of me, and she didn't want to have me out there, on the street when she wasn't quite stable herself. So she literally left me in the hospital. And so I was there in the hospital or in some kind of foster care for 6 months. No family, right? No father, no mother. Never met my real dad. So I was there for like 6 months. Did this have an impact on me? Maybe, maybe not. I'm sure it did in some kind of way. So finally, a wonderful family, the Thomas family, they didn't officially adopted me, but basically I was adopted. So they took me in under lifetime foster care. And this was when I was 6 months old. So I lived with them my entire life. And this was a wonderful thing, but what began to happen is my birth mother then started to come back, and she wanted to visit with me. And so you can imagine the emotional turmoil of, okay, well, who is this lady? And, well, who is this lady over here? Well, I have a dad. Where's my other dad? All right, so I got 2 moms and 1 dad. Where's my other dad? So I always wanted to know where my other dad was. Never found out. So here comes my mother, and it was wonderful to meet her and see her, but I'm sure that had an impact on my speech as well. And then around the time when I was 12 years old, my birth mother decided, you know what, I don't want to keep coming in and out of your life, so I'm just going to stay out. And so she decided to break all contact with me. And I remember I was about 12 years old, and my speech got worse after that for a while. So again, I'm sure that had an impact on me as well. Then when I was 16, my foster dad, who I was really, really close with, much closer than with my mom, he passed away. So all these things that happened that definitely didn't help my speech, probably impacted it. But I always had a lot of confidence. I used to do martial arts and sports and things just to boost my confidence, really. I always read a lot of personal development books because I was looking for a way to break out of this prison, if you will. I know some of you feel like you're imprisoned inside your own mind and your own body because you have stuff that you want to get out and you can't. Or it's like a time bomb. You might be able to get it out, but you never know when that stuttering bomb is going to go off and you block or you get stuck and you can't say what you want to say. You want to order food. You want to go talk to someone. You want to answer the phone and give your name and your address. And sometimes you can do it and sometimes you can't. There are some people I've worked with who have a hard time saying their name, something very, very important, right? And so this is really, really frustrating. Yes, it's frustrating. And so you feel the sense of frustration. You feel the sense of pressure, of constant pressure of not being able to say what you want. This can also diminish your self-esteem, where you just don't feel good about yourself. Now, I'm not saying that all people who stutter have low self-esteem. That's absolutely not true. I've met plenty of people that have high self-esteem and great confidence. They just struggle with stuttering. But it can impact, and it impacted my self-esteem. So I had to do things to boost my self-esteem, to boost my confidence. Because what happens is people beat themselves up. Why can't I speak like everyone else? What's wrong with me? I'm trying to do this. I'm trying. I've done speech therapy. I've tried this program. It's just not working. There must be something wrong with me. Well, there's not anything wrong with you. There are plenty of other people, millions of other people in the world struggling with the same thing that you're struggling with. So if you're watching this, just know that, and you're going to meet a lot of those people, for example, inside of our Facebook group. Not only are they struggling, but they're overcoming. They're overcoming it. And we'll talk about how to do that in just a little bit. So what then begins to happen is you feel the sense of frustration. Sometimes people lose hope, right? Am I ever really going to be able to speak like everyone else? Am I ever really going to be able to speak well? So I went through all these different cycles. In high school, again, not being able to, or not participating in certain things because am I going to be able to read, right? So there's lots of things that I would have done, but I didn't do. Going to college, changing my career choice, right? Because of my speech. So literally limiting myself and steering my decisions, allowing my decisions to be steered and directed because of my speech. Has this ever happened to you? Do you not take jobs? Do you not speak up in class? Do you not take promotions? Do you not apply for things and do things because of your speech, right? We've all been there. We know what that feels like. So there's lots of opportunities that perhaps you've been missing out on because of your speech. So now, fast forward, make it through high school, do fairly well, go to college, kind of do okay through college. And what I would do when I was in college, when I needed to, if I knew that I needed to read aloud, which is something I absolutely hated reading aloud. Why? My mom used to make me do it, so I could do it, and used to do it in church. Sometimes I would get stuck and kind of struggle through it. But I learned how to just stop and not push through it because I didn't want to embarrass myself. So I would just stop and act like I was thinking, or like I just couldn't get it out, right? So at least that was better. It was a little better than, making faces and sounds. So go into college, and what I would do is I would tell professors when I needed to, hey, sometimes I struggle with my speech a little, and I might not be able to read this, or it might take me a little time. So if I get stuck or I raise my hand or something like that, just go ahead, pass it on. Teachers are very understanding. And I didn't always have to use that card, but it did help. It helped me to be relaxed, and it really did help to do that. So then when I got jobs and we go through training, I would have to do the same thing. So fast forward a little bit, and one of my first jobs out of college was working as a phone representative at an insurance company. And I did this because, one, I wanted to challenge myself. Two, this was one of the best jobs I could get, benefit-wise and pay-wise, coming right out of college. So I was like, and I hated talking on the phone. I used to let my wife do it because I got married early when I was like 21 or 22. So I let her make all the phone calls. It was just that pressure and that struggle, and again, biting my tongue. And I remember being on the phone sometime and not being able to say stuff. And literally, no joke, I would be moving my head like this, trying to get words out. It just made myself dizzy, right? But I'm not joking. I would be just doing all, because no one could see me, right? So I would do it's like I was dancing or something to try to get the words out. And just, obviously when I was in front of people, I wouldn't do that. But on the phone, I wouldn't. So I hated it. So I'd have her make phone calls. So I got this job. I said, okay, I'm going to challenge myself. So I told them, I said, hey, because we had to read a script. We had to go through, I don't know how many weeks of training, and they had scripts. And I was like, oh God, here we go. I got to read. I got to memorize the script. So what I did is I said, hey, I sometimes get a little stuck, but I think I'm going to be fine. Because obviously I had to do this to get this job. I had to do this to do the job. So they were a little concerned, are you going to be able to do the job? So I worked hard. And one of the things we had to do was we had to say, hello, this is Michael Williams. Thank you for calling the insurance company's name. I would say, is it okay if I say yes, hello? because I can say yes, hello, but I have a hard time saying hello. I said, sure, no problem. Just by making that one little change, I was able to answer the phone smoothly all the time. And yes, hello is very, very normal. Many people say yes, hello, right? So normal. You don't have to say hello. So I said, yes, hello, this is Michael Williams. Thank you for calling. And so that helped me get through that. And then just doing the script, I started to internalize the script, like not just read it, but I got into a rhythm and it really started to internalize it. So I was able to make it through the training and get the job and do the job. But I would still get stuck on the phone. I wouldn't make all the gyrations. I just learned to hold it. But every day coming home, I would have headaches because of the pressure of switching words and changing words. And I got really good at it where it sounded fine, sounded great, sounded fluent. But all of this stuff was going on in my head to be able to say what I needed to say. And so it was a lot of pressure. Have any of you experienced that? Do you experience that now? Just this pressure of having to watch out. Oh, I can't say that word, so I got to say this, or I got to add this word in front. And oh, I'm not going to be able to say that. So how else am I going to communicate this clearly? And so you become an expert at doing that. And there were times I remember where I would get stuck and I'd have to hang up the phone. And it would be like, okay, so why are you having so many calls get disconnected? I'm not sure. It's just a problem with the phone system or something, right? And it wasn't so many that there was a big alert like, okay, there's something wrong with this guy. He's hanging up on a lot. But it would happen. And sometimes I would have to explain that, well, just something wrong with the phone, whatever. So I made it through that. But I decided at some point that this isn't for me, right? Even though it helped me to be able to answer the phone, I know sometimes when I would come home and answer the phone, I'd say, yes, hello, it's Michael Williams. Thank you for calling. And then, wait a minute, I'm not at work, I'm at home, because it became a habit. It became a habit. Remember that word? It became a habit of just answering the phone without thinking, because I would do it thousands and thousands of times. So I decided at that point that, you know what, this is not what I want to do, right? I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. I got to figure out something else. Well, during this time, it's back in the mid-90s, I was called to active duty for a few months or something. And I was an officer. I was going through our officer's training. And because I was had the most seniority, I was in charge of our class, of our unit. And I remember standing in front, and some of you have heard this story, but I remember standing in front of my platoon where I had to call them to attention. I had to say, attention. And I remember I couldn't get it out. I just blocked, right? So here I am standing in front of my platoon. I can't get it out. That was probably the most embarrassing moment of my life. So I had to call up my platoon sergeant, and I had to say, listen, I'm not able to get out what I need to get out to call him to attention. Can you go ahead and do that? Right? And then I left. I had to explain to the class, sometimes I get stuck in my speech, and that was just one of the times. Doesn't happen often, but it happened then. And thank God it never happened again. I was always able to call them to attention, but that pressure of like, okay, is this going to happen again? Am I not going to be able to call them to attention? That's going to affect my ability to serve. Again, thank God it never happened again, because I did something about it. I worked on how to crank up my energy, how to get into a rhythm, get into a cadence, and calling them to attention, right? How to get some air flowing before I said those words. So that was extremely helpful. All right, fast forward a little more. And now I'm at this point where I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? I don't want to be working on the phone. What am I going to do? And as a religious person, was born and raised a Christian. I know many of you out there are Muslim. Many of my best clients are Muslim, Hindu, so I have clients from all over the world, all different religions, love them all. And so it doesn't really matter, but this is my story, right? So as a Christian, I prayed, and I remember praying growing up, Lord, remove the stuttering, can you just cure me of it? And nothing ever happens. I was frustrated about that. Is God listening? Why isn't he listening? Why isn't he just removing this? I'm glad he didn't. So finally it became clear. It was like it became very clear to me that what I was called to do in my life was going to require me to be able to speak well. I want you to tune in closely to everything that I'm about to say, okay? Because now we're going to get into some of the meat. Not that what I said before wasn't meat, it was context. Now we're going to get into some meat. So I felt called to do something to help other people to reach their potential. I didn't know what or how, but I knew that that's what I was called to do. And I knew that it was going to require me to speak. So I said, well, Lord, I can't speak. And I recalled the story of Moses, how Moses was called to lead the people of Israel, the Israelis, out of bondage. It was like, well, I can't talk, Lord. I got a problem with my speech. And he kept giving all these excuses. Finally, the Lord just got upset with him and said, okay, listen, I'm going to give you an interpreter. I'm going to give you someone who can help you speak. I tell you what to say. I'm going to tell them what to say, and then you can tell them what to say. We're going to get this thing done, right? Or else I'm going to blow you up. No, he didn't say that. But he got kind of upset at Moses. So finally Moses says, okay, I'll do it. He kept making excuses. Some people say Moses didn't really stutter, but he's slow to speech. Experts say different things. Whatever it was, he had a problem with his speech. So I remembered that. I was like, okay, Lord, I have a problem with my speech. How am I going to do this? And the impression at that time was that you're going to have to figure out a way around it or through it. And so back then, the internet might have been out, but I didn't have it. And so I didn't search for resources on how to stop stuttering, how to overcome stuttering. What I did is I looked for ways to fulfill my calling. Now I want you to follow me. So I felt called to help people using my speech. So I knew that I needed to become an excellent speaker. And around this time, a friend of mine introduced me to a guy called Tracy, who many of you have heard me talk about. He's older now, so his style's a little different, not as dynamic as it used to be. And so he gave me some bootleg Tracy audio cassettes, right? Copied the cassettes. And I started listening to those cassettes. And later I ended up buying everything. So for those of you that get bootleg versions of my stuff, just remember, just like I did, I got bootleg versions, but then I bought stuff. It's like this guy's invested his time and his life and money in creating this, and it's helped me. And even though I have a bootleg version, I'm going to buy the real version, because you sow and you reap. You get whatever you give, right? And so I purchased that stuff. But I had these bootleg versions, and I would listen to them over and over. And at first I was bored with myself. This guy's a boring style. Just like some people tell me on YouTube, you're boring. Can you speak faster? Okay, well, my style's not for you. But if you listen to the content, that's what's most important. Yeah, you got to have a style. You can't be boring. But not everyone's style is going to fit everyone else's style. I want you to remember that. If you're speaking slower, you're speaking smoother, some people are not going to be patient with that. So what? That's their problem. So I listened to him, and finally I started to get what this guy was saying. And I said, you know what? I like the way he speaks, and it really resonates with my own personal style, like who I am, who I'd like to see myself as a speaker. So I'm going to model this guy, right? This is where modeling came in. So I'm talking about how I overcame stuttering, the secrets. So I started to model Tracy. How did I do it, and why did I do it? So here's where I want to share a couple of things with you. The main secret to how I overcame stuttering can be found in these words, actually. And it's not what you think. It's not what you think. It's not in a religious sense. I had faith that as I believed that I could become an excellent speaker, right? That's very different than having faith and belief that I could overcome stuttering. Do you get that? Write that down. Write that down, right? You can tweet that as well. I didn't focus on how to overcome stuttering. I didn't look for any research on that. I didn't go to speech therapists. I focused on my calling. My calling was to use my voice to positively impact the lives of others. That was my calling. So I knew that to be personally fulfilled and to be productive, I would need to figure out how to become an excellent speaker. And when I found this guy who I felt like, wow, if I can speak like him, then everything else is going to be taken care of. So I had a positive focus, a positive goal, and I believed that I could become an excellent speaker. Now, where did this faith, this belief come from? I don't know. When you're called to do something and you're inspired by someone else, often that belief, that faith, that hope will be there. Right? So some of you out there watching, some of you watching I'm working with now, and I know because you've told me, you know that you have the capability, the capacity, the potential, the ability to become a great speaker, an excellent speaker. You know this inside. I didn't necessarily give it to you. You just knew it. And that's why you resonated with this program and why you resonated with me, because you knew that you could do it and you believed and you had faith that I could help you go on that journey, right? And that this process and system, the Pro 90 speech system, was one that could help you get there, okay? So the first major overarching secrets that I believed and I had faith that I could become an excellent speaker, not that I could overcome stuttering. Here's what I want you to remember with this. Becoming an excellent speaker is a process. It's a skill, and it is a series of habits. And I knew that if I practiced this, and if I modeled someone else, that if I practiced speaking like this other person, that I would become an excellent speaker like this other person. I just had to mimic this guy, right? When I gave presentations, mimic this guy. And by doing that, the stuttering or stammering, struggling, I don't even think I referred to it then. It's almost 20 years ago as stuttering. It's just like struggling. I called it struggling, right? So it's just like, all right, so mimic this guy and I speak like this guy. Then the stuttering will just, or the struggling will just diminish. It will just, because I'm replacing it with something else, with something better. I don't have to even think about stuttering. I don't have to think about stop stutter. I don't have to think about technique. I just have to mimic this guy when I speak. And if I mimic this guy, if I practice speaking like this guy, then I'm not going to be stuttering because he doesn't stutter. So I'm not going to stutter. So what did I do? Well, this is part of the process, and we're going to talk about kind of the second part of this faith, because I had faith in two things, right? Is I would listen to his audios, and then I later got some of it, and study his videos, and practice doing my own presentations the same way he did his, right? So I would listen to his stuff, synthesize it, and then practice giving my own presentations as if I were this guy, as if I were Brian Tracy. That makes sense. I would spend hours and hours practicing his style, his posture, same words. Does that make sense? Does this make sense? Using my hands the same, using my face the same, creating a similar kind of a rhythm. Right now I have my own style, but it was built on his, right? Creating a similar rhythm when I was speaking, right? So mimicked this guy. So a first part of this thing was I believed that I could become an excellent speaker. The second part is I believed in a process, in a system that could help me become an excellent speaker, okay? So let's kind of put those things down. Belief or faith, right, in what? First, that I could become an excellent speaker, right? So I believed that. Second thing, I believed in the process. I'll tell you what that is, or system, because this is critical. So what do I mean by process or system? Let me tell you what I'm talking about. not only did I practice giving presentations, I know some people think, well, what about conversations? We're going to get to that because I struggled with that even after I became excellent at giving presentations. I'll share with you my secret in doing that. So what are we talking about when we say process or system? Here's what we're talking about. One of the things that I also did in addition to practicing speaking is I did affirmations. Learned this from Tracy. Something I call the 3P formula: first person, present tense, personal. So rather than saying, I don't stutter, I don't want to stutter, I don't like stuttering, Michael, don't stutter, I said, I am an excellent speaker. I am an excellent speaker. I also had some affirmations for self-esteem. I like myself. I love myself. I like myself. I can do this. I can do this. And I would say this like 50 times every morning at least. So in the bathroom, 50 times I would say it. And sometimes a little throughout the day, but definitely in the morning time I would say it. And what I would experience is I would experience this battle, this internal battle of something saying, this is stupid. This is not true. You're not an excellent speaker. You don't like yourself, right? Or you don't like yourself a lot all the time. You're not very confident sometimes. So there was this resistance, this internal resistance, which is normal, right? Because what I discovered is that consciously, I could not control my speech on the conscious level, not long term, temporarily sometimes. But if there was a word that I was trying to say and it wouldn't come out and I was blocking, I don't like to use that terminology, but I was blocking, nothing I could do could get the word out. Because it's just, boom, the brain said, you're not going to be able to say this word, and I don't care what you say or what you do, you're not going to be able to get it out. That's frustrating, right? So I knew that I had to address this on a sub or unconscious level because I could, you know, you've experienced this. When you're speaking, you just get this feeling like, I'm not going to be able to say that. I'm not going to be able to say, and then you anticipate, so you don't say it, right? Same thing. So there's this subconscious, this unconscious programming that was there. And I've talked about this in my How to Retrain Your Brain. We talk about the science. I won't go into that today, but you can map this out in your brain and see the parallel to what I'm saying. I'm just speaking in kind of layman terms now, subconscious mind. There, you can see this in the neurobiology of our brain. Okay, so it's a subconscious level that I had to get in there and I had to reprogram my subconscious because I could feel it saying, no, you're not. You can't do this. You're going to get stuck on this word. You can't say this, right? And that would happen. So the affirmations was a process of reprogramming. And I believed, I had faith that if I just followed this process, that I knew that I had a subconscious mind and I knew that it could be programmed. So back then we had audio cassettes. Remember I told you? Some of you probably never used the audio cassette if you're young, but we had audio cassettes. I said, hey, my subconscious mind is like an audio cassette. And it's been programmed to think that I'm a stutterer and that I'm going to stutter. I'm going to get stuck. But guess what? The great news is that I can record over that so I can watch this and listen to this. If you're listening, say, I'm listening, Michael. Say, type in, we're listening, Michael. I can't see it, but I want you to listen to this. So what would happen is I said, okay, I can consciously re-record, rewrite, reprogram what's on this cassette. You could say what's on this hard drive, right? I could record it using my conscious mind, using conscious commands. How? Affirmations, visualization as well. So mostly I did affirmations and I would do some visualization. I started telling myself the kind of person I wanted to become. I am an excellent speaker. I can say that I can do this. I like myself. I love myself, right? And so there was that internal battle, that internal resistance that was there and made me want to kind of give up, right? But I kept doing it, And I remember it took about 6 months. And initially I saw this burst of confidence and fluency. So, and you'll experience this too, and I see this happen to a lot of my clients. when you start doing something, something called, part of it is the placebo effect, right? I've seen people watch my videos and go fluent for a day or for weeks, and then they drop back down again. But it just proves to you that you can. So you'll see this peak, and then all of a sudden, within a week or two, it'll just drop back down. Sometimes worse than what it was when you started. This has happened to people. That's normal. That's normal. Doesn't happen to everyone, but it does happen. That happened to me. So I kept going because I believed that, you know what? If I just keep doing these affirmations, I can reprogram my subconscious mind. Why did I believe that? I believed it because I had a pretty good understanding of how our mind worked. Why? Because for, my goodness, 10, 15 years, I'd been reading psychology books and personal development books. So I had a very good understanding of how the mind works and how the subconscious works, but never tuned into this until I met Brian Tracy. So I kept doing the affirmations every single day, which is why in my program I have people do affirmations. And gradually that voice inside, that resistance began to diminish, began to release. And then finally, my subconscious mind accepted those new commands. You are an excellent speaker, right? You do like yourself. On top of that, I wasn't just doing affirmations. Remember, I was also modeling. I was pretending as if I was Brian Tracy when I would go out. So here's the other thing I want you to know. Part of the process was doing affirmations every single day until that resistance went away, until my subconscious accepted those new commands. Number two, I practiced speaking like someone else who inspired me. I literally became that person when I taught. Here's the third part. I would actually go out and find speaking gigs for myself. I would go to colleges and say, hey, I've got this presentation I put together on goal setting and time management, and I'd love to give this to your students. And I wasn't even looking for money. I just wanted to do it. So I had practiced it so much that I could literally go into a different state. So for some of you that have seen a Tony Robbins video of him changing the guy's state and he went fluent. Well, this is what I taught myself how to do, is change states. I would change states so that I became Brian Tracy, right? And this is what Mona did, and this is what Sakshi's done in terms of they would change states and become Michael Williams, right, when they would speak. And so, and if you do that long enough, you develop your own new speaking identity. You no longer have to become the other person, become yourself, right? So change states every time. And I would get out there and speak. So I could do a 30-minute, a 45-minute, an hour presentation, 0 notes, flawless, no stuttering, no getting stuck at all, just flawless. And was because I had memorized, I had internalized it, and I had structured it. And I was Brian Tracy when I was speaking. So that's how we came up with modeling, right? Now, here's the problem. I still struggle with conversation. Why? I want you to listen to this, because this is another secret for those of you who now have somewhat of an understanding of modeling, right? How I did it, and how and why I did the affirmations to change my thinking, right? To change what was in my subconscious mind. So I was changing the psychology of smooth speech and stuttering, and I was changing the physiology, how I actually spoke, by speaking like someone else who spoke well. Practicing that and actually going out under pressure, speaking this way in a different state. But what about conversations? Well, what would happen in conversations is I would flip back to Michael Williams. So I would struggle. Conversations had gotten better, but still not where I wanted them to be. Just going to check the time. So what happened? Finally, I felt called into the ministry, right? So I felt this calling to go into the ministry, to become a preacher. So I took on a second model, a guy named Charles Stanley. Many of you may not know, but I just liked his style. So whenever I would preach, I would become Charles Stanley. Incorporate a lot of Brian Tracy, but I also would become Charles Stanley for preaching. Still, flawless, could do that, excellent manner, but still struggled in conversations. And it was around 1997, 1998, that I stopped. I said, why are you still struggling in conversations? So let's analyze this. How do you speak when you present? Well, a little more animated. I have a rhythm. This is very, very important. I have a rhythmic way of speaking. That's how Brian Tracy speaks. That's how Charles Stanley, he has a rhythm. And I use my hands more when I present. I use facial, I use body language, right? My voice is just a little higher when I'm presenting, like it is now. It's a little higher. It goes up and it comes down. So I modulate, I inflect a lot. So, okay, so you do all these things when you speak. And you kind of used to go into a different state. By this time, I had been speaking so much that now it became who I was. I just went into kind of like my Michael Williams / Brian Tracy presentation mode, or my Charles Stanley mode. And so I said, okay, so this is what you do when you present. How can you transfer this to your conversations? Okay, so well, if I speak like I do when I present, it's going to sound funny. It's going to sound like I'm teaching or preaching at people when I'm speaking. I don't want to do that. So, well, so what? Just do it anyway and adjust it down to a conversational mode or level. So, okay, I'll try it. So then when I would speak to people, I would add a little more animation, add a little more energy and enthusiasm, use my hands more, use my face more, raise the pitch of my voice up, modulate, inflect more in my conversations. Boom, instantly improve my conversation. From there on out, conversations got better and better and better. Completely changed the way I converse with people by simply transferring, transferring my modeling style to my conversations and tuning it down a little so that it was appropriate for conversations, right? Listen to that. I transferred my modeling style, which is actually pretty easy to create. That's one of the first things we do in the Pro 90 speech system is you create a modeling style, a presentation style, and then you transfer it to your conversations and tune it down some. So this is what I did. And I remember it was around 1997, 98, I felt this big, wet, heavy black blanket. It's like a weight being lifted off. And I felt free. I was like, and I can remember saying to myself, man, I can do whatever I want to do. I don't have to be limited by my speech. If I want to take this position that requires me to speak, I'll do it. If I want to do this that requires me to read, I know how to read now, because I used to have to read from the Bible while I was in church, while I was preaching, while I was in seminary. You had to read. And I created a rhythmic, more dynamic way of reading. So read, even though I still didn't really like it, but when I got into this rhythm, it was fine. So I said, man, I can do whatever I want to do now. There's no limitations to what I literally said that to myself, and I felt that. So here are some things I want you to know in terms of how the secret, you have to have faith and you have to believe that, number one, you can become an excellent speaker. This that I'm saying now are for those of you who are winners. This isn't for the weak-minded. This is for winners. So if you're a winner, you're going to want to continue to tune in. And who are those of you who are winners? If you believe inside that you have the potential and capacity to be an excellent speaker, a great speaker, and you want to use your voice, then this is for you. If you just want to overcome stuttering and stop stuttering, this may not be for you, right? You're just probably not going to have the motivation, the perseverance, the persistence to make this work. You're going to be looking for tricks and temporary cures and devices and all that kind of stuff. And I have so many people who bought devices and they stopped working, went to this program, spent $8,000, went over here for 3 weeks or whatever, and temporary, if any, results. This that I'm saying now is for those of you that know you have the capacity and potential and desire to become an excellent speaker, not just not stutter. So you first have to have faith and belief that you can become an excellent speaker. I can't really give that to you, right? You have to have it. So if you don't have it, then yes, it's possible you can develop it, but you're going to have to do some more work in that area, okay? So if you're listening and you're like, yes, that's me. I know that even though maybe I'm not right now, but I know that I have potential to be an excellent speaker, and I have the desire to be an excellent speaker. You have to have that faith. That's number one. That has to be rock solid. So faith and belief it's trust and confidence in something or someone. It's also a belief in something in which you have no proof yet. While there is proof out there, it's both scientific and experiential, that this process works, you may not have experienced it for yourself yet, right? So you have to have the faith that you can become an excellent speaker. Number two, talking about the secrets, how I overcame stuttering, right? Using these little known secrets, or this little known secret. Number two, you have to have faith and belief in a system, in a process. Here's why. I want you to listen to me. I want you to follow this closely. I'm going to make this crystal clear. Your experience, listen, may tell you that you're not making any progress. Your experience may tell you that this is not working. You can't listen to or respond or react based on your experience, okay? So you might be going through this program and you might see those dips and you might say, oh, this isn't working, or oh, it worked last week and now it's not working. Okay, this happens all the time. Or, well, I tried to do what you said and it didn't work. Well, that's just like you learning a new language and saying, I tried to speak this language and it didn't work. It does work. You just have to keep doing it long enough, right? It's going to work. You just got to do it. You can't say, I can't learn that language because it just doesn't work. No, it will work. You got to have faith in a system, in a process, right? And this process is based on how you learn and how you develop habits. If you wanted to simplify it, that's it. Speaking, the way that you speak and the way that you think are habitual for the most part, right? They're habitual, especially those things that are on the subconscious level. It's a pattern of thinking, it's a pattern of belief, right? And they can be changed, patterns can be changed. Speaking well and thinking in a certain way is also a skill. It's something that you can study, you can watch, read, you can listen, you can learn how to speak better, right? Excellent speaker, modeling. You can learn how to do that. And if you learn how to do it and you practice it and then you go out and you use it in real life, so you can't be shy. If you're shy and you can sit back, you can take this program, you can learn, you can watch the videos, you can practice. Oh, I practice at home, I'm great. As soon as I pick up the phone, as soon as I go talk to someone, boom, everything falls apart. Same thing in learning a new language. You learn a new language at home, you're great. Then you go out, you talk to somebody, boom, doesn't come out. What do? Do you give up? No. You keep going out, you keep talking to people. You find people with whom you can talk to. You find lower pressure situations and you keep doing it until it works. And it will work. So you have to have what? Faith. You have to believe in a process or system. So you got to commit to a system and stick with it until you see results, right? So the Pro-90 speech system is such a process. It is based on the science of habit formation and learning development or learning acquisition. It's based on science. You can go out and do all the research you want and you will come to the same conclusions that, hey, I can actually learn a better way of speaking. I can actually change the way I think. Okay, the science is there. The neuroscience and all the other sciences are there. I've done the research and it's there. So you have to believe that. You have to believe that. Okay, and I believe in a process system. Now, some of you are going to jump around. Again, you're going to say, I'm not so sure I believe this guy. He doesn't have a PhD. He's not even a licensed speech therapist. He's not a psychologist. He's not a psychiatrist. Maybe he just read a few books and he's put together the system because he wants to make money. And he's a pretty good speaker, kind of an inspirational guy. But there are lots of other guys out there who are inspirational and they're having people develop this false hope that they can. And they're paying them, whatever, $100 or $3,000. He's getting their money, and then all of a sudden, they're kind of right back to where they started. Some of you are going to believe that. Some of you are not going to want to work with me for whatever reasons, because I don't look like you. Do you know that the vast majority of my clients are non-Caucasian? That's a shame because there are so many Caucasians out there who struggle with their speech. Why is that? Well, there are some cultural differences. Often, people who are Caucasian look for credentials. Oh, he didn't have a PhD, he's not a licensed speech therapist, so I'm going to go look for someone else. Or he didn't look like the typical guy or typical expert who does this, so I'm going to go look for someone else. And they go out and they buy devices and they spend thousands of dollars on different programs, and many of them don't get the results. Or they go and they get a speech therapist who says, I'm an expert at this, who's never stuttered in their life, and they spend thousands of dollars and they end up with little to no results. So for some of you who are just going to not believe that this system actually works, and that's okay. Can't do anything about that. But for those of you that do believe that what I'm saying resonates with you, and you're like, this is true, doesn't matter who this guy is, what he's saying is true, and it really does work, then this is for you. So you got to commit to a system, right? And you got to stick with it so that you're not out spending thousands and tens of thousands of dollars thinking that something else is going to work. I'm not saying there's nothing else out there that works, because there is. There's a guy who's probably on this webinar now who just found his own way, right? And he's now becoming an excellent speaker. It took him 2 years, right? There's other guys who've been taking my course on their own. It's taken them years. So there's ways that you can accelerate this, right? So, so here's where we want to go with this. You got to commit to a system. The Pro 90 speech system is such a system that you can commit to, that you know will work. You have faith. I had faith that if I kept doing the affirmations and I kept modeling and speaking, that I would become an excellent speaker. I'm not saying I'm the greatest or the best speaker in the world, but I believe I'm an excellent speaker. It's because I committed to a system, and it took me years to figure that out. Well, I've created a system now to help you become an excellent speaker in a matter of a few months. And this doesn't mean you're going to eliminate stuttering. So let's talk about that for just a moment. Don't set unrealistic expectations. Don't try to say, okay, I'm just get rid of stuttering, cure stuttering, eliminate it. Even if we use those words, what we're talking about really is being able to say what you want to say, when you want to say it, in a confident manner, as smoothly, fluently, and clearly as possible. Not being controlled by your thoughts, like, I'm going to get stuck here, I can't say this, right? Where you just feel more confident. You're not constantly thinking about speaking. You're not thinking about stuttering. That's going to diminish. You're going to be able to say what you want. All these things happen over time. People that work with me in private coaching do so well that many of them actually go out and win speaking contests. I have a guy who I've been working with for a few months now, and he, just this past Wednesday, I think, went to a Toastmasters. And I got to get him to leave his comment in the Facebook group, and won table topics. And he was like totally shocked. I was like, I'm not shocked. I can see the way you speak. And I believe that you have the potential to win in your presentation. Mona has won multiple times. Other people that I've worked with have won multiple times in Toastmasters and other speaking competitions. People that I've worked with have gone out and gotten better jobs, making from $10,000 to $34,000 that I know of dollars more than what they were making, because their speech had become that well, right? So you can accelerate the process through coaching. And so if those of you that are interested in coaching, talk to me after the webinar and I'll get you some information on that. But some of you can't afford coaching, or you're not ready for coaching. I want to strongly encourage you to get into a smooth speech boot camp. It's a very low investment, and you can get in there and actually, in these 2.5 hours, experience smooth speech and feel more confident for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Don't take the words of those that have been in the course, right? Get in there for yourself at a very low investment, and you'll experience it. And then you'll see, okay, I actually can do this. Now I have to create this as a habit. You're going to experience smooth speech, and then I'm going to show you how to make it a habit. because if you just experience it, anyone can do that. You got to make it a habit. And that's what takes the time. That's why I say this is for winners, because if you're a winner, you're going to make it a habit. You're going to keep doing it until it works, right? You're just not going to do it. Okay, well, I tried to do it this day and it didn't work, Michael. I don't know. I don't think this. No, you're going to keep doing it because you know it's going to work, because you have faith and belief in a system. You have to ignore what you're experiencing and you have to believe that the system is going to work. Okay. So I want to invite you to the Smooth Speech Boot Camp. Even those of you that want to do coaching, unless you're just like, I know I want to do coaching, I don't have to attend the boot camp. Because if you're in coaching, you can attend as many boot camps as you want. But for most of you, your first step is attend the boot camp. Okay, experience it for yourself, and then take the next step. Now, some of you are going to want and need to do the course. I call it the boot camp course. It's the new self-study, and everything you need is right there. All of the training, there's a daily routine that will help you immerse yourself in this process, right? You can't just dip your toe in. You got to jump in, because this is something where you've got to overwrite your old speaking style and your old thinking with a new one. This isn't easy. So you want to immerse yourself in the process, shock your system, get in there and do it. So you're going to want to get the entire boot camp course, because it's a system that you can plug into. If you can afford it, get the system. If you're attending this webinar or you're listening to this, I have a special link where you can get a boot camp. In fact, if you get the entire system, it's about $445 or 40, something like that. A couple of payment plans, but get the whole system and attend unlimited boot camps. When you attend a boot camp, it's like you're getting personalized coaching. I speak to, and Sakshi, my assistant coach, we speak to every person that's in there, and we give you personalized attention. So get the boot camp, attend the boot camp, and get the course. Again, some of you are going to want one-on-one attention with me, and then you're going to want to do the coaching. One of my clients, Moyd, and there's some other people that can attest, it's highly effective. I've got some videos that are going to come out. When we're done with these guys, you're going to see the before and after. Then we're going to see them 6 months later and a year later, and you're going to see how their speech just keeps getting better and better and better. It doesn't decline as long as they keep getting out there speaking. So with that, I'm going to wrap up and take some questions, because it is 11:59. Okay. So let me wrap up. You got to have faith. My story is based on having faith and belief that, number one, I could become an excellent speaker. Not that I could stop stuttering, but that I could become an excellent speaker. Number two, I had to have faith in a process or a system. That system was, I can change my thinking through affirmations. Now I've built in visualizations and some other things. And number two, I can change the way I speak by modeling someone who speaks well and practicing that, and then going out and actually speaking under pressure using this new speaking style. And a sub part of that is I can use a similar speaking style in my conversations, which means if you want to speak well, you have to speak often. If you want to speak well, you have to speak often. You can become an excellent speaker if you want to. You just have to believe that you can, and you have to believe in a system, and you have to commit to the system. If you're a winner and you know that you have the potential to speak well, then I want to invite you to click a link that I'm going to be giving you to attend a boot camp. And for those of you that know that you want the full system, get the system, and we're going to support you in this process. Others of you are going to be ready to more efficiently and effectively navigate this. Coaching is beneficial for a few reasons. Accountability. Some of you already know, yeah, I've taken courses before and I just was in and out and I started stopping. Life got in the way. Need accountability. Evaluation and feedback. I can save you months, if not years, because I can say, this is what you need to do. I can pinpoint, this is what you need to do. Accountability, right? Evaluation and feedback you get from coaching. And then 3, encouragement. You're going to want to give up. You're going to have dips. I'm going to encourage you to keep going, okay? Get the boot camp. I'm going to send you a link to it. Experience it for yourself. I have a money back guarantee. If you get in there and you don't experience smooth speech, don't come in there doubting. Come in there believing it's going to work. But if you get in and it doesn't work, guess what? I'm going to give you your money back. Okay, so I got another poll that I want to do real quick. I'm going to shift over to my computer, change the video, and then I'm going to remain for a while to answer some questions, okay?